Hi there, I'm Larissa from ELCUS, which stands for English Resource Lab, Keeping It Simple. In this video, we're going to talk about contractions. In writing, in formal writing, whether it's for university or business, we can't use contractions. No way. But in order to be able to avoid them, we need to be able to identify them. Now, we have a lot of very easy contractions that we know of, and so in this video I want to start off with talking about or just revising some of the pretty obvious contractions that we know. After we do that, what I want to talk about is show you some of the trickier, a little bit more challenging contractions, because when you can identify those, then you know to avoid them. And the last thing we're going to do is have a look at 7 sentences, which is a bit of a fun activity. Let's look at the simple. So, we know the extended version. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, they are, in the plural. In the contracted version, we know it's I'm, your, his, she's, its, and in the plural, where, your, their. Now, let's have a look at the perfect tense aspect. I have, you have, she, he, it has, in the plural, we have, you have, they have. The contracted version is I've, you've, she's, his, it's, plural, we've, you've, they've. Using will, we know that it is I will, you will, he, she, it will, in the plural, we will, you will, they will. And the contracted version is I'll, you'll, she'll, he'll, it'll, and in the plural, we'll, you'll, they'll. And in the negative we would say won't. Will not goes to won't, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later as well. Speaking about the negative, let's have a look at some of the negative contractions. So if we say are not, it goes to aren't. Is not goes to isn't. In the perfect, have not and has not goes to haven't and hasn't. What about some of the modals, for example? Would not, wouldn't, couldn't, mustn't, shouldn't. But what I'd like to do now is actually go through some of the more trickier contractions so that you can identify them in order to avoid them. Let's have a look at the following list. So here we have cause means because. What about how'd? Now this has 2 meanings. It could mean how did or how would. Same thing with how's. This has 3 meanings. How has, how is, how does. How does that look? How is that possible? How has that happened? This one is a little harder to say. May not. Bit hard to abbreviate, but it means may not. Then we have the modals in the negative. And the way we say it is mustn't have, means must not have. Couldn't have, wouldn't have, shouldn't have. Could not have, would not have, should not have. What about that when we use the word that, that'd? That could stand for that had or that would. That's stands for that is and that has. They'd, that stands for there had or there would. Now this one, the next 2 are interesting. Tis actually is abbreviated for it is. But we know that it is could also be it apostrophe s, its. But in some academic literature, you may come across this. Tis and 'twas stands for it was. Here's another one. Whatted. Stands for what had, what would, or what did. We have what's, what is, what has, what does. Which is, which has. Who'd have guessed, who would have. That's what it stands for. Who'd, who would, who had, who did. And whose, who is, who has, and who does. What about won't? Won't stands for will not. Let's have a little talk about now. Why does will not go to won't? Little bit of a fact here. In the 16th century, we didn't write won't. We actually used to say will not, why not, even willn't. But over time, that actually changed, and a lot of talk, a lot of debating went on, and the changed version moved to won't, which is a little bit of a compromise from will not. So there's a little bit of a fact for you. Let's have a look at these sentences. They had to decide quickly because time was running out. This may not be a good time to leave. How would you write them out in their full form? Let's have a look at sentence 1. If there were any free tickets, they'd have been distributed evenly. They'd, would it be they had? No, it'd be they would. Sentence number 2. Michael Smith, who's the head researcher, is continuing to gather further information. Does this stand for who is or who has? If you said who is, you're correct. Sentence number 3. If it were possible, there'd be no reason to worry. There had or there would? There would. Sentence 4. The medical team won't take any chances during the operation. Obviously stands for will not. Sentence number 5. The local community thought that the price rises couldn't have been avoided. And couldn't have goes to could not have. Sentence number 6. What's changed recently for the organisation? Well, instead of saying what's, we would say what has. It's not what is, but what has. And number 7, what's this mean? That would stand for what does this mean. That makes sense. We wouldn't say what is this means. Now, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful by identifying some of the trickier contractions, then hit the subscribe button and the bell. Thanks for watching. I'm Larissa. Bye for now.